Tomorrow War, Amazon Prime's newest big movie starring Chris Pratt about a family man drafted into a fight in the future where the fate of humanity relies on the ability to confront its past. So Amazon have a big, brand new, shiny sci-fi movie. And like with so many movies that feature time travel, they get themselves in a conundrum, they create a paradox, which ultimately means their movie doesn't make a lick of sense. We've got Looper all over again. Now, the intention behind this movie is noble. They're trying to make a unique sci-fi movie, something a little bit different, but it's stupid, and let's get into why. There's probably going to be spoilers in this video because I need to talk about a lot of this, so if you haven't seen the movie, you could go watch it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Now, Chris Pratt is a fantastic actor. Yvonne Strahovski, who's also in this movie, I really enjoyed her in the likes of Chuck. Straight off the bat, I knew this was going to be a stupid movie. And why was that? At the start of the movie, they showed a 2022 World Cup final, and it's Brazil against a team that looked like Scotland. And like, it's highly unlikely that Scotland are going to get to the World Cup final against Brazil. Now, maybe it could happen, but it's unlikely to happen. But regardless, I could understand the reasoning for having the World Cup final be a centerpiece at the start because it's one of the most watched events in the world. And if something like this was to happen, where humanity had to get the attention of humanity in the past, it would make sense to go back to a global televised event being watched by millions of people around the world. But the woman who comes back and like tells them, oh, there's a war in the future and we need your help, she automatically is linked up to the stadium and like is microphoned and going through the speakers of the stadium despite just arriving. It's kind of weird.
30 years in the future. We are fighting a war. Our enemy is not human.
Although future stuff, I guess. Although there's not really too much future stuff going on. Like there's no future technology that we see in this one, apart from like the portal for time travel. So as I say, I'm going to try to go through certain points that I just found nonsensical with this movie and explain what I believe is the main plot hole of the movie. Now, the movie has a lot of interesting action, and as I say, they deserve some points for trying a unique sci-fi movie, and Chris Pratt's pretty good in the movie too. He's a convincing action hero, but at times they also go with the generic jumping away from an explosion or running just about away from an explosion, slow motion through smoke type of thing. That does all happen in there as well. So as I said at the beginning, I'm going into this review fully expecting that anyone watching this review has seen the movie, so, you know, there's going to be spoilers. So first of all, they come back and they're like, there's a war in the future. Chris Pratt's playing an army guy. You think he'd just sign up and be like, okay, I'm going to do my duty type of thing. But instead they skip to a year later and he's trying to avoid it. He's a school teacher. So they establish his relationship with his daughter and his wife, blah, blah. Skip forward to conscription. He's getting pulled into the army. He's getting sent to the future war, whether he wants to or not. So this is where they have a scene where they try to explain their time travel thing, that it's not proper time travel. It's not like Back to the Future where they can go anywhere they want in time. It's more that there's two portals, one in 2021 or 2022, because the World Cup final was being played 2022, December 2022 is when that happened. So technically, if it was a year later, it would actually be 2023 they're in, and the other one's in 2051. When the war is happening. And what they explain is that time, it constantly moves in one direction, despite them going back in time. Time in both portals is constantly moving forward. They can't like go to a day before in 2051. They constantly go forward in time. You know, time keeps moving in 2051. Okay, they're trying to do something unique and they're trying to cover their arse for paradoxes, which they don't do. Let's be clear here. So they set up, there's two portals, let's just say 2022 and 2051. So Chris Pratt and a load of civilians with guns going to the future to see the aliens. Cool, it's a good creature design, it's unique. They're kind of like animals more so than intelligent beings though. They just hunt down things, don't seem smart creatures. So initially my thought was, well, these creatures are supposed to be aliens that have like flown here in spaceships, but they don't seem to have much intelligence about them. They're very much animals chasing down prey. Probably got people saying animals are smart. You know what I mean. During the first war, Chris Pratt's getting instructions in his ear from an army person, and that woman who's constantly screaming is later revealed to be his daughter in the future. Okay. And they have a talk. And then later on, when she's angry with him, she tells Chris Pratt when he dies, how he dies, and that 2 years after he came back from the Tomorrow War, he separated from his wife. 2 years after that, they divorced, and 2 years after that, he died in a car crash. The butterfly effect is not in play here, despite the fact that she's giving him all this information knowing he's going backwards in time. It doesn't seem to play into the equation. The fact that he's going to go back in time with this knowledge and not change his actions, he's definitely going to change his actions. That's going to change the past that he's going back to. He will now no longer be going back to the same past because he knows things about his own life and he can change them, and those events won't happen. You know, he can be nicer to his wife, less of a dick to his kid, like he actually ends up doing. But that's just one of many things. So he gets to the point where they make the vial, they have the big emotional scene where he says goodbye to his daughter in the future, or he says he's going to save her in the future, which doesn't make a lot of sense because even as they say in their own movie later on, this timeline, the future timeline, will not exist anymore. If Chris Pratt goes back with the poison or the vial, or let's just call it the antidote for the aliens, he goes back with this secret weapon that's going to kill all the aliens. They can just plan ahead of time and kill the aliens, and then that future timeline doesn't exist. That scene ends up with the portal in 2051 getting destroyed just after Chris Pratt gets sent back in time to 2022. But Chris Pratt goes back and he has the vial that's going to kill all the aliens. But because of the portal, he can't go back to the future to give them the vial, which is kind of a stupid plan anyway, because why wouldn't they just, you know, go back in time to 2022 and then produce it in mass quantities and make weapons with it and stuff, and as soon as the aliens attack, just destroy them all. But I guess that wasn't a plan. Cut a long story short, they find out through the DNA in the vial, they find out that the alien had volcanic ash in its DNA or some shit like that. So they go to the main expert on volcanoes. No, not a scientist. Some random kid from Chris Pratt's class earlier in the movie. Good job. It makes sense. Don't go to a scientist or a specialist on these things. Go to some random kid. I know they established earlier that the kid loves volcanoes, but I still think a scientist would be a better option than a kid. So then, through the long and the short of it, they find out that the aliens were there all along, hidden in the ice in Russia. And they burrowed their way through the ice, and that's how they got out. Global warming came into effect. The ice melted really quickly, and they got out just in time to start the war in 2048, I think they said the first attack was. So they know the aliens are already there in 2022. They can go destroy the aliens before they attack. Perfect. That makes sense. Let's go do it. So they go to do that, and they kill like 5 of them. Then some of them start waking up, of course, and the whole battle ensues. The ship's blown up. Chris Pratt and J.K. Simmons end up fighting the main alien, and the end fight is pretty interesting. It's entertaining. It's not too easy for Chris Pratt, but it does end up with him kicking the alien off a mountain while shouting "die." So that's a thing in itself. But this is where the whole movie breaks down. There's a game-changing, movie-ending, story-melting paradox created right at the end of the movie. So I'm sure a lot of you realize it straight away, but I'm going to try to go through it and not melt my own brain in going through it. 2022, at the World Cup final, woman comes back, says there's a future war in the future. That's when they first find out about the aliens. Chris Pratt, long and short of it, ends up finding the aliens in present day and destroying them. But after the woman's come back from the future. So it's still 2022, maybe 2023, because it might be like January by now, let's say. So let's just say it's 2023. He goes and finds the aliens and kills them. They're done. No more aliens. Ship blown up, Queen killed, no aliens. That means in 2048, the aliens never would have attacked because it had already been destroyed. However, if the aliens didn't attack, didn't start the war, then the people from 2051 wouldn't have been fighting a war. They would never have traveled back in time to 2022 to tell the people about the war in the future. And therefore, the people in the past, including Chris Pratt, would never know about the existence of the aliens. So therefore, Chris Pratt would never go to the future and get the information about the aliens existing and the vial and how to destroy them. He'd never go back to his own time and find out that the aliens were there to destroy them in the first place. But then the aliens would attack because Chris Pratt wouldn't be there to destroy them. And the person would come back in time and tell everyone about the war, and then Chris Pratt would destroy them, but then the war couldn't happen, so the aliens would attack again. And it's a whole time loop. It's a major paradox that makes the movie redundant, ridiculous, and nonsensical. While the movie has a lot of explosions and some interesting action, the story is beyond stupid and it simply doesn't make sense. I believe I've said this before about a movie called Looper. This has happened before with these type of movies. It happens a lot with time travel movies where there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of thought put into it. They just go, oh, this will be cool, there'll be a war in the future and people from the past will go to the future and fight the war and come back and just stop the war before it happens. Even though then the war won't happen and people won't go back in time. So hopefully I got that across clear, that the paradox thing and why the movie doesn't make any sense, despite having some good action in there and some decent acting. And as I say at the start, some style points for doing a unique sci-fi movie, a nonsensical movie nonetheless. And as well, on top of that, the movie is the best part of 2.5 hours long. I think it's 2 hours, 15 minutes. And it's not a super slow movie, the pacing is decent, but it's a long commitment. It's a big commitment for a movie that ultimately makes no sense. So when it comes to a rating, I couldn't get this movie any higher than a 2 out of 10. Don't waste your time on this one. Although, as I say, I assume everyone who's watched the review has already seen it. I'm sure there's going to be someone going, oh, it doesn't make sense because blah, blah, blah. I don't care. The movie doesn't make sense. Paradox. Stupid movie. End of.